Hello everyone, no presentation today, just me and a camera. The reason for this is that a lot of you have been requesting an update from me on the Portuguese nationality law and how it affects the golden visa. Will the program be changing? Will it now take 10 years to become eligible for the citizenship rather than 5 or less? Will the 7 days per year requirement be changing? Etc, etc. I'm getting an awful lot of requests from an awful lot of confused people. So let's address that today. Now, I have intentionally remained silent on this topic because there is a lot of detail that is yet to be defined. Now, I prefer to speak when we have certainty on a topic. However, it has been rather frustrating to see a lot of speculative information being presented as facts on the internet, and that has confused an awful lot of you. So we will clear that up as best as we can in today's video. The reason that I don't have a presentation for you today is that the second parliamentary debate on the nationality law and its proposed amendments will be taking place in the coming days, and I'll be producing a new and more extensive video on this once we actually know what the draft legislation will look like. What is the context of all of this to begin? Well, as you may know, following Portugal's general election on 18th of May of this year, 2025, the government introduced a draft amendment on the nationality law on the 23rd of June. Now, this proposal marked a major shift in how citizenship eligibility and naturalization timelines would be defined had it been passed. And it would have raised serious constitutional and legal concerns, particularly for golden visa investors. The main takeaway was the proposed extension of the timelines for citizenship eligibility to 10 years instead of 5 years, and changing the day that the clock starts counting from the date of application to the date of receipt of the residence permits. Now, that was just a draft, and that draft proposal was swiftly rejected by Parliament. It fell far short of the clear majority that was required before it could then be considered by the President. So soon after that rejection, a gentleman by the name of Jorge Miranda, who you may have heard of, is one of Portugal's foremost constitutional scholars, publicly warned that the proposal essentially was in direct violation of the Constitution. And alongside Rui Tavares Lanceiro, Jorge Miranda published an 82-page report in which he concluded that the draft law is unconstitutional. He argued that it would give excessive power to the state. It would undermine individuals' right to seek citizenship under fair and predictable conditions. Under current rules, the 5-year naturalization period, that is to say, the eligibility period before you can qualify for citizenship, that actually begins when a residency application is submitted. That is in part due to excessive processing times that have been seen in the last few years. The proposed amended law would instead start the clock only when the residence card is issued. Again, the proposed version that was rejected by Parliament when it was presented. This change effectively tied, or would have tied, eligibility for citizenship to bureaucratic efficiency over which investors have no control. It would therefore give the state direct control over an individual's progress towards naturalization and citizenship. Jorge Miranda, in his report, affirmed that this would be a direct contradiction of the constitutional principles of equality and fairness. It essentially penalizes applicants for administrative delays that are beyond their sphere of influence and control. Now, the government has since described its proposal as merely interpretive, suggesting that it only clarifies existing law rather than changing it. Jorge Miranda himself, he would reject that reasoning, noting that the proposal in fact actually reverses established legal norms. The government had actually pushed for the law to enter into force retroactively from June 2025. Not the first time that that's been proposed by a sitting government in Portugal, but in any case, that would be a clear violation of Article 15.4 of the current nationality law, which states that any alteration must be applied prospectively, not retroactively. Therefore, until Parliament formally amends the legislation, existing rules must continue to apply. And in fact, that's exactly the situation we find ourselves in today. There has been no change to the timelines to citizenship as of today, which is the 6th of October, 2025. That may, of course, change in future. What does this mean for golden visa applicants in that case? Well, thousands of investors entered Portugal's golden visa program under the expectation that their citizenship eligibility would begin from the date of application and mature after 5 years. Many of those are my clients. Some of you may even be watching. Hi, good to see you again. The original proposed legislative change not only threatened to alter this timeline, but also lacked any transition period to protect those who are already invested in the program in good faith. Now, Jorge Miranda stressed that this omission breaches the principle of legal continuity and damages Portugal's international credibility as a secure jurisdiction for investment migration. That's actually in direct contradiction for one of this government's stated aims for the future. Therefore, it is rather unlikely that such reforms will go through unchecked, even if the same bill were to be submitted to the House and, by some miracle, passing with the majority that it requires. Bearing in mind, we do expect a heavily amended version to resurface in the days and weeks ahead. This would not be the first time, by the way, that Portugal has made a grand statement to the world's media with sweeping, large changes proposed, only to then ultimately water down these proposals significantly when putting them into practice. It is therefore our expectation that the next proposed revision to the nationality law will be far milder than the original bill. However, that being said, we of course cannot offer any guarantees on that. No one can. We must ultimately wait and see what the changes will look like once the next iteration of the draft is presented to the Parliament. If anyone tells you that they know this information for a fact before anything has cleared the House, I would frankly be very wary of using them as an information source. And like I say, I've seen an awful lot of sources in recent days and weeks purporting to know certain elements as fact, which is simply not true. What does this ultimately mean for golden visa investors then? Well, one item to note is that proposed changes only consider modification to the nationality law. The nationality law does not govern the terms and conditions that surround the golden visa. Therefore, the 7-day per year stay requirement on average, the investment criteria, these are factors that are not in scope for amendment as part of this. The program is to remain exactly as it is currently, at least as the context currently stands, but the timelines to citizenship may be modified. That is what is in scope for change here. To be clear, while the government's proposal has sparked uncertainty, the golden visa program itself remains fully intact. Existing residence permits and investor rights are protected under current legislation at time of recording, again, 6th of October. Despite this latest controversy, investor confidence does remain strong. I see this every day in my work. I know that my industry colleagues and myself are currently servicing a high volume of inquiries. We do expect this to continue for the foreseeable future, despite the best efforts of government and a potentially rather scaremongering media. Given the constitutional challenges raised by Jorge Miranda and others, it is expected that any future reform will need to include transitional provisions safeguarding those who have already invested under the existing framework. We are yet to see that on paper, but then there is nothing that has cleared the House yet. So I am preaching patience here. We must wait and see what happens, what is ultimately presented to the House and what ultimately passes the House before we can comment. For now, golden visa applicants can proceed with confidence, knowing that their current rights remain legally protected, although you may wish to keep one eye on goings-on in Portugal just to make sure that any changes that are written into law are in line with your expectations so that you know exactly what to expect in the months and years ahead. Once again, apologies for the lack of visual aids surrounding me here today. I felt this was an important message to share with you regardless. I hope this helps to clear up some of the uncertainty. I will check back in with you once we have an update on the second parliamentary debate. I will do that by producing a video in line with other videos on this channel. I'll create a presentation and I'll explain exactly the implications that you can expect from draft legislation once we have that update. For now, please feel free to check out other videos on this channel. Download my free guide to Portugal Golden Visa investments if you are looking to get started on your journey. You can find links in the description box down below my head, as is the norm on this particular channel. But anyway, for today, that's all from me. Have a wonderful day ahead. Speak to you again very soon. Bye for now.